Good afternoon to you. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news, and we have so much of it today. All sorts of things breaking. We will go through all of them here on the Vince Coglianese Show. Always so great to have you with us. Coming up just moments from now, we'll get live analysis from Joe DiGenova, the former U.S. attorney, is here to react to Hunter Biden's plea deal being thrown out in court today. That case in complete chaos. Tom Fitton will join us at 3:30. We'll get the latest as the Biden family dogs, so poorly trained, keep biting all of these federal employees, wounding them and costing you even more money to heal them up. Margot Cleveland is here at 4 o'clock today from The Federalist as we dig deeper into the Biden family's corruption. Mark Krikorian on the border at 4:30. And Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, only right here on WMAL, coming up at 5 o'clock. We'll talk to her about the conversation around the I word, impeachment, inside of the United States Congress. Don't miss a moment. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yes, chaos in that courtroom in Delaware today as that plea deal falls through. Here, CBS's Catherine Herridge describing a moment.
A member of the U.S. Attorney's team told the court that there was no deal. And one of the lead attorneys for Hunter Biden, Chris Clark, said as far as he was concerned, quote, the plea deal was null and void.
The plea deal is null and void. It's out of the way now. ABC News reports on what the judge was asking the prosecutors.
At one point, the judge asked the prosecutors, is there still an ongoing investigation? They said yes. She said, well, how can he plead guilty to part of an investigation when it's still ongoing? All of that, as you can tell, a lot of legal back and forth. It does look like things are back on track, but the bottom line, this Hunter Biden plea deal, which was expected to be a routine matter, wasn't and may still be in jeopardy.
Not at all. And in fact, the resolution as far as today is concerned, Hunter Biden has pled guilty, not guilty, at least for the moment, to these tax charges. And the case is somewhat on ice over the next 2 weeks as the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's lawyers try and cobble some sort of deal together again. Here to assess everything that just happened is the former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe DiGenova. Joe, good to have you with us.
Nice to be with you, Vince.
Now, when the announcement was made some time ago that they had reached a deal, an agreement, Hunter Biden's side of the argument seemed to be saying that, hey, we've resolved everything. He's going to plead guilty to these 2 tax charges, and then he'll get a pretrial diversion agreement on the gun felony, which means he won't be penalized for the gun felony. And that's it. Everything goes away. And in David Weiss's statement, he had said at the time that the investigation is ongoing. And I've been confused ever since. How do you reach a plea deal and yet have the investigation continue?
Well, I think what happened was you had two disreputable sides working on a public relations gambit. You had the incompetent U.S. Attorney, David Weiss, thinking he could pull the wool over the eyes of the court and the public and the Congress by hiding the plea deal, first of all. Remember, nobody has ever seen it. We still haven't seen the text of the plea agreement where all this was supposed to be worked out. But it's obvious what happened. What happened was David Weiss said, look, I'm not going to prosecute you any further, but I'm not going to say that in the plea agreement. So just work with me on this. Everything's going to be fine. And Latham and Watkins said, okay, no problem. And I'm sure they told that to Hunter Biden and that he was okay with it. But then when all this stuff broke over the last 30 days and things got really hot and they started leaning on Weiss, and the judge in Delaware got one look at this and said, they're not going to make a fool out of me. I'm going to dig into this. I'm going to ask questions, and I'm going to get answers. And when he asked the U.S. attorney, does he get immunity from everything in this deal, looking at the language of the plea itself, plea deal, which we have never seen, remember, the U.S. attorney said no. And then the defense attorney said yes, and then said, we're not going to have a plea. So we have to see the language of the plea agreement to know what was written and why there was this quote-unquote misunderstanding. There was no misunderstanding. But lawyers make plea deals all the time. And the one thing you don't get wrong is what you're going to be prosecuted for and what you're not. This is nonsensical. This was a corrupt plea bargain, politically corrupt plea bargain. And David Weiss, this little clown in Wilmington, Delaware, my hometown, I'm so embarrassed for my hometown that they have an idiot like this for the United States attorney. The guy should be ashamed of himself. And good for the federal judge who just socked it to these people. She just asked a few basic questions, and look what happened. The whole thing fell apart.
Judge,
now they're going to reach another deal, quote unquote. Let's see what that is.
Judge Mary Ellen Noreika today. Now, I do have a suspicion about this, Joe, and that the reason the Justice Department wants to keep the investigation, quote, open is to avoid congressional oversight. They don't want the evidence against the Biden family to be made public. So as long as the investigation is considered open, the longer they can delay handing Congress what they need to examine the Biden family's business arrangements.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, it seems to me that what you are watching is a crime in progress with the assistance of the United States government to protect Joe Biden. But with that, what Kevin McCarthy did yesterday when he did that little glissando into impeachment for the first time, that's the first time that word has come out of his mouth. That changes everything because it means they're willing to spend political capital to go after the big guy. And they have every reason and responsibility to do so. So what's happening is Hunter has gotten caught up in the scheme that he and his father created. And now the scheme is beginning to unravel. We'll see whether or not it unravels completely. But there's no way you could possibly be David Weiss and allow the statute of limitation to run on the tax felonies and not get an extension of that. And he didn't do that.
Yes.
He took a dive. And it's just so corrupt. There's no way a legitimate, honorable U.S. attorney allows those charges to fall by the wayside because of the absence of a tolling agreement on the statute of limitations.
So
this is so corrupt.
Let me ask you about the way that this works in the legal system, Joe, because at this moment, we get a judge who's asking good questions, this Judge Mary Ellen Noreika. Will she be the judge that's overseeing this case throughout? Or if, say, Hunter decides he's going to plead not guilty and this thing goes to trial, will they end up perhaps in front of a judge that would treat Hunter Biden's case and all of this corruption, as you've pointed out, more favorably?
Well, she'll have this case until it's over. In other words, if he pleads guilty and she sentences him, then she loses the case and it goes back on what we call the wheel, where it gets distributed to any judge who comes up randomly. Now, there are only, I think, 2 or 3 judges in Delaware, so it's not like she couldn't get it again, but there aren't that many judges. If in fact he goes to trial, then that's going to be a longer process, and who knows what could happen after that. But again, once the case is over, it's over for the judge in question. Then if there are future cases, they get assigned randomly. Okay.
Interesting that FARA violations came up today, this Foreign Agent Registration Act, because the judge asked explicitly about whether or not those continued to be on the table, and the Justice Department conceded, yes, they are. Now, you think, based on your prior analysis, that they're not actually trying to go after Hunter for any foreign business arrangements, but pretty crystal clear that the judge has her head on a swivel here.
Well, it's pretty clear that the U.S. attorney in Delaware has thrown this case, and he has avoided purposely going after anything that would involve Joe Biden and the rest of the family. So clearly, the judge sees that for what it is, which is blatant political corruption on the part of the United States attorney. And I can't imagine that a federal judge looking at this conduct by the United States attorney even wants this guy in her courthouse. This guy is creating a stench in the law enforcement community in that state. But by the way, that state has been known for years for its lack of vigorous law enforcement against politically corrupt people in that state. And that's whether there are Republicans or Democrats who are nominating U.S. attorneys. I mean, I've watched this for years, and it's like Mississippi in 1964.
Joe DiGenova, there's another detail from inside the courtroom today that stood out to me. I see Saul Weisenberg tweeting from the New York Times' Glenn Thrush inside the courtroom saying this, quote, "From the start, the judge seemed highly skeptical of the unusual deal, which offered Hunter Biden broad immunity from prosecution in perpetuity, questioning why it had been filed under a provision that gave her no legal authority to reject it. When she asked Leo Wise, a prosecutor, if there was any precedent for the kind of deal being proposed, he replied, 'No, Your Honor.'" So how is it that Hunter Biden ends up with a never-before-seen arrangement other than the corruption of the Biden family?
You've got it. There's no other reason. This is the U.S. Attorney for Delaware rolling over for the Bidens. Does David Weiss want a judgeship? What does he want? What is he doing? Can you imagine living with yourself, cutting these types of deal in public? I mean, people know what's going on now. This isn't the grand jury process where everything's secret. These are public proceedings. People are going to find out what you've agreed to. This is just ludicrous that you can think you can get away with this. It shows you how dumb the guy is. I mean, he doesn't have any smarts. I mean, it's one thing to do a favor for somebody, but this is so corrupt. It's so unbelievably embarrassing to the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware that you can't imagine that the guy would be able to show up in the morning in his office. It's just, and plus, the other assistant U.S. attorneys in the office appear to be just as bad as he is. But from the things that we're reading about, the things that they said and did to protect the Biden family from inquiry, from search warrants, from questioning, from being mentioned in other questions, being asked of other people. I mean, it's staggering when you look at what the United States Attorney for Delaware, David Weiss, did to limit any investigation into the Biden family. I mean, if I were the Attorney General, this guy would be, I'd take this case away from him so fast, but he's doing exactly what Merrick Garland wants him to do.
It is amazing. So as this gets messier, how much do you think this places pressure on Joe Biden to issue a pardon to make this go away?
Oh, I think this creates let's put it this way. Suppose you're Biden, you're Papa Joe, and you're not feeling too well. You're missing a bunch of beats. You can't make it through the day. You can only function maybe 4 out of 7 days a week as president of the United States. Why don't you say, I'm not going to run, I've decided not to, and pardon your son? Because then it doesn't matter. And so what we may be headed to here is if he's going to run for re-election, he can't pardon his son. So, but we're not anywhere near that yet because this judge still has to deal with whether or not there's going to be a plea deal. If so, is he going to go to prison? He will never allow Hunter to go to prison, whether he's president or not. I mean, he will, as soon as there's a jail sentence imposed, yes, he will commute the sentence or issue a pardon. I mean, he will never allow Hunter Biden to go to prison.
But you think we could be looking at the end of Joe Biden's presidency?
Well, I think I would not have said that a couple of weeks ago, but things have sort of snowballed so fast with the revelations of the limited liability companies, the shell companies, the millions of dollars now being confirmed, the FD 1023, more people testifying, and the brilliant testimony of those 2 IRS agents. Because the one thing that they did, they established a benchmark. Everybody knows they're telling the truth because they don't have any reason to lie because they're losing their jobs, they're going broke. The only people who have a reason to lie are the Bidens, and the Democrats on the committee. And watching the Democrats on the committee is one of the most embarrassing things. I've worked in the House and the Senate, and to watch the Democrats now is disgusting. I mean, they're just disgusting.
Yeah, and nobody's more excited today.
And that includes Jerry Connolly from across the river. What a sniveling little snippet.
There you go. We didn't have to dump that part. Thank you very much, Joe DiGenova. Always good to talk to you, sir.
You bet.
Really appreciate your analysis today. And I will say, I was trying to say a moment ago that nobody more excited about today's news than Gavin and Jennifer Newsom. Very excited by today's developments, I assure you. An update on the Hunter Biden story. He did plead not guilty today, at least for now, on those tax charges which means there are conditions for his release today that the judge has assigned. Judge Mary Ellen Noreika. And those conditions include the following. He has to submit to supervision and report for supervision to the Central District of California. He has to continue or actively seek employment. Okay, let me throw an amicus brief at the court real quick. Don't tell Hunter to find another job. That's how he always ends up in trouble, and that's how he always ends up selling us out. Stop telling him to look for work. Let him be a deadbeat on this one. He can just, let him just take Biden family money. They've got plenty of it from all the old crimes. But she says continue or actively seek employment. He needs to abide by restrictions on international travel. He has to communicate in writing all international travel plans. He's not allowed to possess a firearm. He can't use alcohol at all. At all is the requirement. He may not use or unlawfully possess a narcotic drug or any other controlled substance. And he must submit to testing for a prohibited substance if required by the Pretrial Services Office or supervising officer. And he must participate in a program of inpatient or outpatient substance abuse therapy and counseling if directed by the Pretrial Services Office. Those are the requirements. Hunter Biden signed it today, acknowledging that he received these orders from the judge. Now, I have to point out, it was just a week ago that Hunter was hanging out at his attorney's home in Los Angeles, Kevin Morris. And Kevin Morris was spotted ripping a bong. That's the correct verb, apparently, for bong usage. Ripping the bong on the balcony of his LA home while Hunter was in the house. How far is Hunter staying from drugs? Not that far. And one of his attorneys is obviously turning to the bong for some relief in all this chaos. Coming up, we'll get more reaction to this breaking story today as the Hunter Biden plea deal just collapses, not going through. Tom Fitton will join us. We'll also find out more about the Biden family dogs and why they're being so poorly trained. Okay, now it's 3:35, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden is more likely now than it's ever been. Margot Cleveland will discuss why it needs to happen quickly. Mark Krikorian joins us at 4:30. We'll talk about our border and Alejandro Mayorkas' testimony today before Congress. And then Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is joining us at 5 o'clock. We will get the latest from her behind closed doors meetings today with the Speaker of the House on that issue I mentioned a moment ago, impeachment. An important day in American history. We've got all the news for you. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Next up on the big show today, we've got Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch. He's also the author of A Republic Under Assault, and he joins us on the phone. Tom, good to have you back with us, sir.
Good afternoon, Vince. A lot going on, huh?
Yes, indeed. I want to get your initial reaction to the Hunter Biden news today. He walked into court thinking he was going to have a plea deal, and he was going to walk away not being charged with anything else. And yet the whole thing collapsed as the judge asked just a few probing questions and said, this doesn't sound right. What do you make of this, that this plea deal collapsed in the court today?
Well, it's an extraordinary development. Obviously, it's the son of the President of the United States. He's been implicated in crimes way beyond what he's being charged and being asked to plead out to. And the judge asked a specific question: does this cover other crimes that are being investigated? And the Justice Department said, no. And Biden's people said, of course, it ought to. And if this isn't the case, there's no deal. And so there's no deal. So he had to plead not guilty. And I tell you, if this Justice Department were run honestly and ethically, and there was a culture of ethics, as I noted on Twitter today at the Justice Department, Garland would resign, Weiss would resign, and the other responsible officials for this disaster would resign. And if there's no special counsel for the Biden family after this debacle, I just don't know what's happening in this city.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see a judge stand up to it for once. The Justice Department at this point, based on the credible testimony of countless whistleblowers, including those two IRS whistleblowers who came out recently, the Justice Department's credibility is non-existent. in these cases. What defendant in this country could expect a fair trial from an agency that is so obviously corrupt?
No, and it wasn't like the judge asked to, got into the nitty gritty. She asked some basic questions about this obviously deficient plea deal, and the details of which I think have been largely withheld from the American people till now. And, the irony of this, Vince, is, and I've been thinking about it, is that Hunter's likely to benefit from this disaster because, he agreed to a plea deal, and now it turns out, well, the Justice Department had other ideas in mind. And I tell you, if I'm Hunter's defense lawyers, I go back to the judge and I enforce it. You can't just pull the rug out from under us here. And so who knows how this is going to work out. It may work out for the benefit of Hunter. But I tell you, this just adds to the momentum for impeachment of Biden, and I think Garland at least, and the appointment of a special counsel. And whether all that will happen, I don't know. You'll be talking to a Congressman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has some good insights here. But the train, I think, is going down that direction, at least finally.
Yes.
As you know, I've been calling for impeachment inquiry for some time. But I think that testimony last week you talked about, the collapse of the plea agreement today because of evidence of corruption and something skullduggerous going on, I don't see how the House gets out of conducting impeachment. And I don't say this sarcastically, but they go to it with a heavy heart because no one really wants to do this. But the Biden corruption crisis is just forcing the hand of the Congress to deal with it in the least through an impeachment inquiry.
It does seem like we're a lot closer today to an impeachment inquiry than we were yesterday. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been sharing with the Daily Caller today that some of the behind-the-scenes meetings that they've been having as Republicans, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy seems to be whipping Republicans towards an impeachment inquiry. He's been trying to place pressure now on members of his caucus to join him on that front. So that'll be interesting. And again, I'll get more details.
Yeah, and I'm, my understanding is there hasn't been much dissent. And I think that whistleblower testimony and the release of this 1023, if your listeners have not read that document, I would suggest they're obligated as citizens to go and find it and read it.
Yeah, it's a huge deal.
They're going to be shocked to their core by what they see in terms of this significant bribery scandal and extortion scandal involving this president, the head of Burisma, and now a current member of the Ukrainian government.
It is amazing to see all of this playing out. So let me, if I can ask you about the political implications of this. Obviously, impeachment is tricky. One of the things about impeachment politically is that typically the person who's being subjected to it, the couple of times that have happened in our lifetimes, becomes more popular, actually, as they're being impeached. That was true in Clinton's case. That was definitely true in Trump's case. But that seems to be irrelevant if the core question is getting to the bottom of the corruption of the Biden family and then, using the remedies that exist in the Constitution. That seems really important. Simultaneously, I think it's going to be interesting, Tom, to be looking at an environment where you have an impeachment going on at the same time that Joe Biden's Justice Department is persecuting Biden's top political opponent, Donald Trump. I mean, what an amazing and unfortunate place that we will be in as a country.
Well, I would submit that prosecution is designed in part to prevent impeachments of Biden and distract and detract from the ability to effectively litigate impeachment. And certainly, frankly, it freezes the Justice Department from going after Biden as well. I mean, the Justice Department really can't walk and chew gum at the same time when it comes to prosecuting major league politicians. And they know when you have 60 or whatever prosecutors going after Trump, who ends up going after Biden? The guy in Delaware in the Baltimore office of the FBI. Who are they kidding?
Right. Let me move to a different topic with you, something that you've exposed for the public this week. I've seen a bunch of even the corporate news outlets finally sinking their teeth into this, no pun intended. You have a story here. Major and then subsequently Commander, the two German shepherds of the Biden family, have been apparently biting all of the Secret Service agents that are tasked with defending the first family, to the point that some of them have been hospitalized. This is all information that Judicial Watch has exposed over these last few years, including this past week. What can you tell us, Tom?
Yeah, I think it was last year we exposed how Major was biting many more people than the White House had admitted to, so they were caught in a big lie about that. And then they got the new dog, Commander, and, we got a tip that Commander was doing the same thing back in, I guess, late last year. We asked under FOIA. We sued in April. We finally got the documents, and they showed at least 10 incidents, 6 or 7 agents and police uniformed personnel under the Secret Service were bitten by this dog. The dog's out of control, and, nothing was done about it. I don't even know if anything is being done about it other than new leash protocols. When did that start happening? It's just awful. And this president, allowed this dog to go around biting people. And this is the family dog. So it wasn't like, oh, well, I didn't know because, my secretary walks the dog all the time. No, this is their dog. They're personally responsible.
Yes.
There were at least 2 instances where they were walking the dog, or the dog was in their custody when an incident happened. And so there's no excuse here. And I tell you, anyone else who had a dog that bit 6 people, they'd lose the dog. And I feel badly for the dog, but I feel worse for the Secret Service agents who have been traumatized and injured by these dog attacks. This is, to me, is symptomatic of the Biden way, isn't
Yes.
it? I don't care what the rules are. Oh, by the way, the agents who complained about the dog bite, Major biting him, Biden thought they were lying.
What? I mean,
so
it's amazing. Are you a dog owner, Tom, by any chance?
I used to be.
Now, the thing that we all talk about as dog owners is, really a dog is a reflection of his owner. It's either good training or not. And it seems to me the Biden family is not bothering themselves at all with training these dogs. They feel like they have no obligation to that. I have a dog. Ironically, my dog is named Major. But my dog, when I first got him, he's his dominant breed. We checked. We did the whole DNA thing. So now the Chinese can track us. The dominant breed is German Shepherd, and when we first got him, we adopted him. He was mouthy. He would mouth at people. He wouldn't fully clamp down and pierce the skin or anything, but he would mouth. I trained him out of it. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't mouth people anymore because I trained him. I took the time to actually train my dog. The Bidens, not so much. These dogs are biting and breaking skin on Secret Service agents in an environment where the dog is encountering these agents every day.
And it's too late for training, okay? Would you want to be around the dog till he's, quote, trained out of it? Of course not. And one of the incidents, he was up in Delaware, so it's not just like him being removed from the White House. The president spends half his time, I don't know if it's half literally, but a significant bulk of his time up in Delaware. One security technician knocked at the door, and someone opened the door, and the dog is a dog. He got out immediately and bit the poor guy on the back. I read a lot of FOIA documents, Vince, over my 25 years here at Judicial Watch, and I was like, holy shnikes when I read these documents.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe this was going on, and nothing was being done as best we could tell. In fact, the Secret Service was hiding this information from us. So, you can have the White House spokeswoman, and I'm sure, there are going to be jokes about it, but it's no joke if you're on the wrong end of a dog bite. And the idea that our Secret Service agents and the uniformed personnel who are trying to defend the life and protect the lives of the president, his family, and all the visitors to the White House and all the other people who visit Delaware and such are worried about this dog attacking them, that's outrageous. And plus, it's dangerous. I mean, they're lucky the dog hasn't been shot. They're lucky there hasn't been a deadly attack. And so what's going to be done? Do you want to be around the dog while Jill is training him? No way, Jose, for me.
No, not at all. So this is, I mean, you're pointing out a couple of important things. One, you have a Secret Service whose leadership had to be compelled by way of lawsuit to share this information. So that probably gives us some lessons on the way they handled that cocaine investigation, doesn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
They treat the agents like dirt. Let's be clear. They've been treated like dirt. They were bitten repeatedly, and nothing was done till we blew the whistle on it. Little old Judicial Watch on the outside. And this is, again, it's something that goes to the security of the President of the United States being undermined by this crazy dog fixation the President had, where he didn't care that everyone was being bitten and was in fear for this dog. I mean, imagine the agent having to hide behind a chair because the dog's about to attack him.
Yeah.
Or another agent's attacked, and they get behind a steel cart while they try to tend to his injury because they were afraid the dog was going to go after him again. It's a war zone over in the White House caused by the dog.
Also, Biden's only awake for like 4 hours a day. He wouldn't even have time to train the dog. I don't know what they're even thinking by having these dogs. And you mentioned that yesterday in the press briefing, some questions came up on this subject, but I noticed all of the reporters were laughing as they asked, you have a dog problem, it seems. And Karine Jean-Pierre was laughing along with them. They're all yucking it up and having a great time, Tom Fitton, all as a result of your reporting.
And the challenge is that obviously there's contempt for anyone who questions the Bidens, right? So it doesn't matter. People getting bitten, people being physically injured as a result of government corruption, because this is what this is. The Secret Service didn't want to do anything and confront the Bidens, so agents were being harmed. I mean, that's government corruption. Mm-hmm. And I'm not convinced that the dog can be trained out of it. Genetics, sometimes you can't, maybe it's not the owner. You just can't train it out of him. The dog has to be removed. I don't think the family can have the dog anymore, not as long as he has Secret Service protection. But, there are different rules here in D.C. I don't know. Maybe the D.C. mayor will do a dangerous dog investigation as the law requires into the Biden dog.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold my breath. No, the Bidens don't seem to be subjected to the same rules everybody else is.
But we got the cocaine issue with the Secret Service, right?
Yep.
We've had the dog issue with the Secret Service. Secret Service and the FBI were implicated in covering up the Hunter Biden's mishandling of that gun up in Delaware. Remember?
Yep.
So this Secret Service, there's a when you've got the senior official corrupt, the agencies around him get compromised in ways that we're seeing in surprising ways, as we're seeing today. It's just terrible. This city is just so awful in the way it's run. It's just so awful. Thank God for Judicial Watch. That's all I can say.
Yeah, thank you for exposing it. The whole point is that we can fix it in the future. Thank you, Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, the author of A Republic Under Assault. Good to talk to you as always, Tom. Thank you, sir. I still have details ahead for you on Mitch McConnell's health scare today as he was out speaking to the press. I'll share more with you on that. And Margot Cleveland is just minutes away on why she thinks impeachment needs to begin today for the president of the United States. But first, let's take some phone calls. We've got Mark calling in Woodbridge, line 2. Mark, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. A great show. My question is, who is paying for Hunter Biden's defense, being he is a private citizen, according to Karine?
Yep. My suspicion is this the same guy who's been paying for all of his other legal defenses, too, including flying him private on a routine basis to Arkansas in a dispute over his child, Navy Joan Roberts. It is probably Kevin Morris, or as I would call him, Kevin the Bong Ripper Morris. The Hollywood lawyer who has been financing everything, it looks like, in Hunter Biden's life. I should point out something about Kevin Morris that I keep reminding people of, though. It seems much of the media has missed this detail or is ignoring it intentionally. Hunter Biden divested his stake in a Chinese firm to Kevin Morris. So Kevin Morris now owns that huge stake in that Chinese firm. So in a roundabout way, perhaps the Chinese are actually paying for Hunter Biden's legal defense right now. But that's a fantastic question, Mark. It seems like an important one, doesn't it?
Well, it just seems like a soap opera to me.
Yes.
He can't pay child support. He just flies around. He's living large. I'm upset about that. I got another question, but he told me not to ask it. I want to know what a Dropbox is.
You want to know what a Dropbox is? I think it's a box where you stuff things into it and nobody else watches it. You drop it off in a box. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, because that's all I can find on Google. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. He told me I'm not allowed to ask it, so I'm going to ask it. I respect that. Okay. Coming up, Margot Cleveland is going to be with us from the Federalist. We'll talk about impeachment. By the way, if Corey says don't ask about something, he's just trying to keep the pace of the show going. Not trying to preclude you from an intelligent conversation. which, of course, you and I have here every day on the Vince Coglianese Show. A lot more ahead. Margot Cleveland, Mark Krikorian, and Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, all here on WMAL.